June 5, 1999. Madonna di Campiglio, a small Italian mountain village, just after sunrise. There is a knock on a hotel room door. Marco Pantani, leader of the Giro d'Italia, hero of Italy, the man with the bandana, opens it half asleep. The official from cycling's governing body is holding a syringe and a vial. Routine health test. 5 minutes, a drop of blood. They will be out of his hair before breakfast. The number that comes back changes everything. 52%. 2 points over the legal limit. 2 points that will, less than 5 years later, end with Marco Pantani dead on a hotel room floor in Rimini. His heart still. His blood thick with cocaine. His body exactly 34 years old. But here's the question nobody asks. What if Marco Pantani had raced clean? Not, would he have been a saint? I mean physiologically, mechanically, watt for watt, breath for breath, climb for climb. If you take the EPO, the transfusions, the entire pharmacy out of his bloodstream, what is left? Is there a champion in there? Or is the legend we built sitting on top of a syringe? Today on the Injury Breakdown, we are running the numbers. We are going to autopsy a myth. And by the end, I promise you, the answer is going to break your heart in a completely different way than you expect. I am Sebastian, physical therapist, performance analyst. Let's get into it. Before we run the math, let's meet the engine. Marco Pantani was 5'7". He weighed on race day about 126 pounds. He had the build cycling people call a pure climber. Hummingbird-thin upper body, legs like cables, almost no fat at all. Modern climbers like Nairo Quintana and Egan Bernal share almost the exact same physical profile. Now here is where we hit our first wall. We do not have a single published peer-reviewed lab test of Marco Pantani's natural maximum oxygen uptake. Not one. Whatever number lived inside his blood, he took with him to the grave. What we do have are the people who looked like him. Egan Bernal, at age 18, tested at 88.8 milliliters per kilogram per minute. Quintana, around 86. These are some of the highest aerobic values ever recorded in a living human. For context, you, sitting on your couch right now, are probably between 35 and 45. So when people ask, was Pantani naturally gifted? The answer is yes. Almost certainly. Possibly a generational engine. But here is the cliffhanger. Here's the number you need to remember. In 1995, Marco Pantani crashed head-on into a car at the Milano to Torino race. Compound fracture, tibia and fibula. They wheeled him into a hospital. They drew his blood. And the value they wrote down in that medical record was 60.1%. 60.1. A normal trained male endurance athlete sits between 42 and 47%. 60 is the kind of value you would see in a person standing at the summit of Mount Everest, gasping for breath. That number was in his bloodstream, on a stretcher, in a hospital, in 1995. And that, my friends, is where the ghost story begins. If a forensic look at sports physiology is your thing, hit that subscribe button now. We are just getting started. Let me explain what was happening inside Pantani's body and inside the entire peloton of the 1990s. The drug is called recombinant human erythropoietin. Writers called it Edgar. You know it as EPO. Your kidneys make it naturally, and what it does is brutally simple. It tells your bone marrow to make more red blood cells. More red blood cells means more oxygen carried per heartbeat. More oxygen means more power per pedal stroke. On a 30-minute climb at threshold, even a 5% boost is the difference between winning by 4 minutes and getting dropped. That is what EPO delivers. Roughly 3 to 7% more maximum oxygen uptake, and a hematocrit that jumps from around 43% to over 50% in a matter of weeks. By 1997, The International Cycling Federation was so worried about riders dying in their hotel rooms with sludge for blood that they introduced a rule. Not a doping rule, a health rule. If your hematocrit went above 50%, you were pulled from competition for 15 days. To save your life, not to punish you. And on that morning in Madonna di Campiglio, Marco Pantani's blood read 52. So how good was Pantani, the doped Pantani, really? July 14th, 1997. Alpe d'Huez, 13.8 kilometers, 8.1% average gradient, 21 switchbacks. Pantani goes up it in roughly 36 minutes and 55 seconds. To this day, that climb sits among the 3 fastest ever recorded. Physiologists who reverse-engineered the climb, using gradient, weight, and time, estimate Pantani's standardized power output that day at around 466 watts. Adjusted for his body weight, that gives us 6.7 to 6.9 watts per kilogram. Held for nearly 37 minutes. The French sports scientist Antoine Valliere drew a line in the sand. Riders sustaining over 6.4 watts per kilogram on a long climb, he called mutants. Not exceptional, not world-class. Mutants. A label suggesting the performance was so far above the human ceiling that it required pharmacological help. Pantani did not just cross that line, he blew past it. The next year, 1998, he turned a 3-minute, 1-second deficit to Jan Ullrich on the Col du Galibier into a 5-minute, 56-second advantage by the time the stage ended. An 8-minute, 57-second swing in a single afternoon. He won the Tour de France that day. He had already won the Giro d'Italia 6 weeks earlier, the Giro and Tour double in the same season. And here is what should make the back of your neck cold. That same summer, French customs pulled over a car driven by Festina team mechanic Willy Voet. Inside they found industrial quantities of EPO, human growth hormone, testosterone, amphetamines, and corticosteroids. An entire team's pharmacy, traveling to the start line. That same Tour de France, the one Pantani won. So the question is no longer, was he doped? The question is, what was left of him when the doping stopped? Okay, here is where we run the experiment. Pantani, clean. Take his mutant Alpe d'Huez number, 6.8 watts per kilogram, and divide it by what we know EPO actually adds. 8 to 12% at the upper end. Do the math, and a clean Pantani's threshold ceiling sits around 6.0 to 6.3 watts per kilogram for 30 to 40 minutes. Sounds abstract. So let me give you the comparison that makes it real. There was a French rider in the same era named Christophe Besson. His coach measured his maximum oxygen uptake at 77 milliliters per kilogram per minute, stable across 6 seasons. He raced clean. He said so publicly. He was bullied out of the sport for it. Besson's threshold sat below 6.2 watts per kilogram. In the high mountains, against the doped peloton, he got dropped. He could not contend for a Tour de France podium. Despite an engine that, in any other century, would have made him a king. A clean Pantani would have been Basson's. Maybe slightly better. Maybe a stage hunter. Maybe top 5 overall in a less doped year. But the Giro and Tour double in 1998. The 4-minute Alpe d'Huez, the mutant numbers. Gone. That is the cold physiological answer. A clean Pantani is a beautiful, dangerous stage racer. Not a legend, not a god. But that is only half the question. Because the real what if is not about watts. It is about whether Marco Pantani would still be alive. When the syringe came out at Madonna di Campiglio in 1999, Pantani did not just lose a Giro, he lost a brain state. The reward systems of elite endurance athletes, the dopamine pathways that give all of us pleasure and drive, are recalibrated by years of training. The brain of a Grand Tour cyclist is conditioned to produce massive endogenous reward in response to suffering, to climbing, to winning. Take that away suddenly, and you do not just have a sad athlete. You have a brain in withdrawal. The clinical literature on retired professional athletes is brutal. 26 to 39% meet the criteria for clinical depression or anxiety. The body's master stress system, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, can stay dysregulated for months. Cortisol flattens. Sleep breaks. The reward system, starved of its expected dopamine flood, starts hunting for substitutes. Marco Pantani's substitute was cocaine. Cocaine blocks the reuptake of dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin, a chemical hammer that forces the brain to flood itself with the same neurotransmitters elite competition once produced naturally. For an athlete whose reward system has just been amputated, cocaine is not recreation, it is medication. By 2003, Pantani checked himself into an Italian clinic specializing in depression and addiction. He did not stay long. On February 14, 2004, Valentine's Day, staff at a hotel in Rimini broke down a door. They found Marco Pantani on the floor. Cause of death: acute cocaine intoxication, cerebral edema, heart failure. Police found notes scribbled on hotel paper. He had described himself as addicted. He had written that he wanted to enter rehab. He had barely left the room in 5 days. He was 34 years old. So here is the second answer to our question, the one that actually matters. A clean Pantani might never have won the Giro. A clean Pantani might never have won the Tour. But a clean Pantani, almost certainly, would still be alive today. Around 56 years old. Probably running a small hotel in Cesenatico, telling stories about that one-stage win in the Pyrenees, drinking wine with his daughter on the terrace. The doping did not just take his records away from him, it built a brain that could not survive losing them. Now here is the part where I am supposed to wrap this up neatly. Tell you Pantani was a villain, or Pantani was a victim. Pick a side, end the video. I will not. Because in 2013, the French Senate retroactively tested the stored blood samples from the 1998 Tour de France. The one Pantani won. They found EPO in 18 riders. 12 more were flagged as suspicious. The Senate chose not to strip a single result. Their reasoning was simple. The doping was so widespread, so systematic, so culturally normalized, that rewriting the podium 15 years later would do less to expose the truth than simply admitting how routine it had all been. Pantani did not dope alone. He doped in a system that demanded it. Rees, Ulrich, Armstrong, all doped, all eventually exposed, all survived professionally. Pantani took the same drugs and paid the highest possible price. The injury breakdown here is not a torn ligament. It is not a fracture. It is the slow-motion destruction of a man whose physiology was extraordinary, whose mental architecture was fragile, and whose sport handed him a syringe and called it tradition. So the next time you see that footage of him, the bandana, the shaved head, attacking on the Galibier with that impossible cadence, ask yourself the real question. Not was he clean. Not did he deserve those wins. Ask would I, in his shoes, in that era, in that culture, have refused. Most of us would not have. And that is the real ghost of Marco Pantani. He is not haunting a podium. He is haunting every athlete who ever stood at a crossroads and chose the syringe because everyone else already had. I am Sebastian, and this is the injury breakdown. If this episode hit you the way I hope it did, there is one more video you need to watch right now. Imagine taking Tadej Pogačar, 4-time Tour de France winner, 12 monument victories, and an estimated maximum oxygen uptake of 96, off the bike, and putting him on a marathon start line tomorrow morning. Does he break the world record? Does he even finish? I take the full physiological case apart in the next video. The link is on screen. Until then, stay curious, stay skeptical, and take care of those bodies.